In the centuries following the formation of early cities, human societies faced a new challenge: survival on a larger scale. Small tribal networks and simple hierarchies could no longer manage the growing complexity of trade, resources, and population. This need for structure led to the emergence of the first organized states, where authority was centralized in rulers who commanded not only armies but also the economy, religion, and law. These early states were more than just cities. They were complex systems that coordinated agriculture, defense, and commerce across vast territories. The rulers were no longer just symbols of power. They became the center of an intricate web of officials, soldiers, and scribes who enforced order and maintained the flow of resources. This period saw the first large-scale construction of fortifications, roads, and administrative buildings, reflecting both the growing ambition of states and the necessity to protect their populations and wealth. Military innovation became a key element, as rulers needed disciplined armies to defend borders, enforce laws, and expand their influence. Alongside military developments, religious and cultural institutions were co-opted to legitimize authority, blending ideology with governance in ways that reinforce social hierarchies. Trade networks extended beyond local communities, creating interdependence between cities and regions, while taxation systems and record-keeping allowed rulers to control surplus and plan for expansion. Ordinary citizens increasingly experienced their lives as part of a larger, organized system, bound by rules and obligations far more complex than the simple customs of previous centuries. This shift marked a profound transformation in human society. Power became both centralized and systemic on a scale never seen before. The stage was set for empires, organized conflict, and the first true struggles for dominance between civilizations, shaping the foundations of geopolitics and statecraft that would echo through history. Every decision, from the placement of a road to the formation of an army, reflected a deliberate exercise of authority, demonstrating how centralized governance could extend control far beyond the reach of any single ruler's personal presence. By understanding these early states, we see how humanity moved from small, manageable communities into societies governed by complex systems, where the consequences of leadership were no longer local but regional, and where power began to influence not just cities, but entire landscapes. This is the story of the birth of the organized state, a turning point in civilization that would define the course of human history for millennia to come. With the foundations of the first organized states firmly established, rulers turned their attention to the internal management of increasingly complex societies. The administration of resources, trade, labor, and taxation required sophisticated systems and hierarchies that extended far beyond the city gates. Scribes and officials became indispensable, meticulously recording transactions, tracking grain stores, and enforcing laws to ensure the state functioned efficiently. Markets and courtyards thrived as centers of commerce, where merchants exchanged goods such as pottery, metals, textiles, and foodstuffs, all under the watchful eye of administrators who regulated trade and maintained records of surplus. Guards and overseers patrolled the streets, ensuring that social order was respected, while elevated structures and palaces housed rulers and governors who observed and directed the operations of the city from a distance, emphasizing the hierarchy and separation of power. Citizens moved in organized groups, performing assigned tasks that sustained the city's economy and contributed to the state's stability, their lives increasingly defined by systemic obligations and expectations. Legal codes formalized social conduct, property rights, and punishments, creating predictability and reducing arbitrary actions, while religious ceremonies and cultural rituals reinforced obedience and social cohesion. Roads, storage facilities, and infrastructure facilitated communication, commerce, and transportation of resources, linking the city to surrounding territories and smaller communities, allowing rulers to project authority regionally. Education, apprenticeship, and military training ensured that skills, loyalty, and knowledge were transmitted across generations, building a dependable administrative class to support governance. Monumental architecture, temples, administrative buildings, granaries, and defensive walls serve both functional and symbolic purposes, demonstrating the permanence and legitimacy of authority, inspiring loyalty, and deterring potential challengers. Social hierarchies became increasingly pronounced, with elites, officials, and warriors enjoying privileges, while the majority of citizens fulfilled roles essential for the state's survival and expansion. The consolidation of these administrative and economic systems marked a critical stage in human history, transforming power from the personal influence of a ruler into structured, institutionalized governance. By understanding these developments, we see how early states maintained control over complex populations, coordinated trade, and enforced law and order, creating the first stable frameworks for sustained expansion and societal development. This phase illustrates the crucial relationship between authority, organization, and everyday life, showing how structured governance allowed rulers not only to control immediate surroundings, but to extend their influence across regions, laying the groundwork for future empires, bureaucracies, and enduring geopolitical systems that would shape the trajectory of civilizations for centuries. As the first organized states continued to evolve, the consolidation of power inevitably led to conflicts both internal and external, shaping the course of early geopolitics. Rulers sought to expand their territories, projecting authority beyond city walls to control trade routes, agricultural lands, and strategic locations. This expansion required not only military strength, but sophisticated planning. Armies were trained and disciplined, fortifications improved, and siege techniques developed. Warfare became organized and strategic, with logistical considerations determining the success of campaigns. Internal stability was maintained through a combination of law, ritual, and surveillance, ensuring that the population adhered to the rules established by the central authority. Social hierarchies became more rigid, with elites benefiting from privileges, while common citizens contributed labor, paid taxes, and followed strict codes of conduct enforced by both administrators and military presence. Religion and ideology played a crucial role in legitimizing power, as rulers commissioned monumental temples, performed rituals, and aligned themselves with divine authority to reinforce obedience and social cohesion. Trade networks expanded exponentially, connecting cities across regions, enabling the flow of goods, ideas, and culture, while simultaneously allowing rulers to control and tax commerce effectively. Diplomacy became as important as warfare, with alliances, marriages, and treaties used strategically to consolidate influence without resorting to conflict. Citizens experienced their lives as part of a larger, interconnected system, where their work, obedience, and participation in civic and religious life contributed to the stability and expansion of the state. Education and training for certain classes ensured that knowledge, skills, and loyalty were transmitted across generations, creating administrative continuity. Monumental architecture, palaces, defensive walls, temples, granaries, and roads visibly communicated the authority, wealth, and permanence of these states, impressing both citizens and rival powers. Over time, the concept of governance became more abstract. Authority was no longer just embodied in individual rulers, but embedded within institutions, military systems, and bureaucratic networks. This allowed power to be maintained even as leaders change, creating resilience and continuity across decades. The emergence of these systems marked a turning point in human history, laying the foundations for empires that would span continents and shape civilizations for millennia. By analyzing the rise of organized military structures, administrative systems, and territorial expansion during this period, we understand how humanity moved from localized city-states to regional powers capable of influencing vast areas. The mechanisms of taxation, labor organization, law enforcement, and diplomacy became essential tools for rulers seeking to maintain dominance, while cultural and religious systems reinforced the legitimacy of authority and social order. Ordinary citizens, while constrained by hierarchies, participated in a complex society where their roles and responsibilities were clearly defined, ensuring both efficiency and predictability. The balance of coercion and consent, of force and ideology, defined the success of these early states, demonstrating that power was no longer simply personal, but structural, systemic, and enduring. This period set the stage for future geopolitical dynamics, as the first real struggles for regional dominance unfolded, shaping the patterns of conflict, governance, and societal organization that would resonate throughout history. In essence, the third phase of early state development highlights the intricate interplay between centralized authority, military organization, economic control, and cultural legitimacy, showing how the foundations of empire, war, and civilization itself were constructed through deliberate and systemic exercise of power. It is a story of ambition, organization, and human ingenuity, revealing that the roots of modern governance and geopolitical strategy lie deep within these formative centuries. When societies transitioned from simple communities into complex, structured, and enduring states capable of influencing the course of human history across generations. As the first organized states reached the peak of their internal and territorial consolidation, power became an invisible yet omnipresent force embedded within institutions, laws, military structures, and social hierarchies. No longer reliant solely on the charisma or strength of a single ruler, authority was expressed through systemic control over the city, its surroundings, and the lives of its citizens. Roads, administrative buildings, granaries, and defensive structures symbolize both functional governance and the enduring presence of organized power. Citizens conducted their lives under structured obligations, performing daily labor, participating in religious and civic rituals, and contributing to the state's economic and military machinery. Rulers and officials coordinated trade, resource allocation, and defense from elevated positions, observing the city as a complex, interdependent system. Military forces maintained discipline, trained for strategic engagement, and secured borders, ensuring stability and deterring potential challengers. Legal codes, social hierarchies, and cultural norms created predictable order, allowing the state to function smoothly across generations. Monumental architecture reinforced authority visually, reminding citizens of both the permanence of governance and the consequences of defiance. Across the region, trade networks connected multiple states, allowing wealth, knowledge, and culture to flow between cities, while enabling rulers to extend their influence beyond immediate borders. Diplomacy, alliances, and the occasional war shaped relationships between these early states, fostering both cooperation and competition, and illustrating the complex interplay between power, territory, and society. The rise of these states exemplified the transformation of human organization, showing how abstract systems could control large populations, coordinate economic and military resources, and project authority across regions. Ordinary people, though constrained by hierarchy, contributed actively to the state's survival and expansion, embodying the balance between coercion and consent that defined early governance. The consolidation of authority through institutions, military organization, trade, law, and ritual allowed these societies to endure beyond individual rulers, creating resilient systems that would influence civilizations for centuries. This final stage in the evolution of the first organized states demonstrates that power was no longer merely personal or localized. It became structural, omnipresent, and enduring, embedded in the very organization of society. By observing these developments, we understand how humans transitioned from tribal networks and simple city-states into complex political entities capable of administering populations, managing resources, and projecting influence regionally. The legacy of these formative centuries lies in the foundations they created: hierarchical governance, economic control, military organization, codified law, and cultural legitimacy. These early systems of statecraft paved the way for empires, shaped the course of human civilization, and established the principles of authority, organization, and societal management that would resonate across millennia. In essence, the fourth phase of the video encapsulates the culmination of human ingenuity in organizing societies, demonstrating that structured governance, strategic power projection, and systemic authority were the keys to the survival, expansion, and legacy of the first great states, setting the stage for the rise of empires and the complex geopolitical landscapes of the future.